How was your morning? How did you find the first presentation? Good is good. What do you remember? What do you recall from the first presentation that you heard? Laughing out loud. Anything else? Everything is team-based. Good. Look, I'm going to communicate with you today. I shall try to minimize the talking head part and maximize your input to make sure that that whatever you say ends up on the recording. You need to speak into the microphone, and Nina and other girls will help you with the mic. So, buzzword-driven management. Do you know what buzzword is? Okay, some curse word. Any other ideas? Yeah, some like ostentatious. The words that we use, which seems to us not very good. But we're not going to speak about bad words here. You can keep the bad words in your head, but I wanted to avoid the illusion, some cultural illusion. You can find anything in internet. That's why internet helped me a lot here. Let me introduce myself. My name is Sergey Atroschenkov. I've been in IT for a while now, and I've worked in testing since 2007. I work in APAM, and I develop people. I manage products and even do some testing. So I haven't abandoned testing yet. What I'm going to talk to you about today. First, we'll agree on techniques, or let's synchronize, be on the same page here with the terminologies that I'm going to use here. Let's speak about who is a manager. Let's not dig too deep on SQA days. It's number 22. On the 22nd SQA, there was Rina Uzhevka's presentation on who is a test manager. Is it a lead or a manager mostly? There were round tables who compared test manager and test manager. And even at this conference, there will be a round table about that, right? Will there be? I think there will be a round table. There will be one about economy. Anyway, one can compare these things there anyway. And we'll talk about buzzwords. Not even buzzwords, but rather what management styles can be there. Let's not talk about RGIS management style. There will be only one slide about that. Let's speak about a manager. You know this picture, right? You've seen it 100 times. Where's the manager here? At the top, the boss. Let's agree, when I speak about the manager, I will not be talking about the leader, I will be talking about the boss. Operational manager, head and shoulders. The leadership is a bit beyond the scope of this presentation. There were other presentations about that. You can browse through them. Have you seen this picture before? That indeed, boss, leader, there are people like this also exist. So let's forget about the leader. Boss leader is someone that is more of interest to us in the description of management that we'll discuss here. It's important to understand and rather agree that any situations, any case studies that we'll look into, any incidents that we'll look into will be considered within the context. All of us are people working in different companies with different cultures, with different teams, different setups, different customers, different internal processes, and as surprising as it sounds, we address different goals and objectives. It looks like we're testing. Who is not a tester here? Raise your hand. Not so many. There are, so all the rest are testers. Okay, still, even you're a tester, you test things differently. And it's important to understand that any horror, any nonsense that's happening, it's happening in the context that we work in. A few theoretical descriptions so that you don't have a set of buzzwords, something funny or sad, some words about theory. There's a Mintzberg theory which describes different styles of management. Mintzberg said once that the manager works in 3 areas: in the area of science, in the area of skill, or art, and the goal of the manager is to strike a balance between these 3 areas, so there is no bias in any one of them. Let's try to exercise what we're going to practice later on. Here you can see science, for instance, when a manager takes and analyzes everything he likes, KPIs, metrics. Maybe he's trying to introduce OKR, and the things he introduces to measure things, looking at numbers. So this is a very scientific approach, and there is skill and experience. There might be some graduate, for instance, with very little experience and skill who comes into manager. The last year's student, for instance, who graduated from the management department, can he become an efficient manager? Why not? What is missing with that person? Techniques, experience, expertise. Yes, experience is definitely what is lacking. Well, he might have enough knowledge, actually, especially humanitarian or theoretical one. If we go deeper into this sad subject of scientific research, then the management definition has a very good word, which is science. Management basically is based on science, and the proof-based management developed in the 20th century. Many people wrote fundamental studies on management. They describe different cases, they describe different situations, and they proved that management is a science, so you can learn it scientifically, but the experience is missing. One thing is to know what you can apply, another thing is how to apply it in real life. So, if we have a manager who is very, very scientific and analytical and has a lot of experience, and this manager has the art of doing his job transparent, is at the zero level. So basically it's a very pragmatic manager. So what can we do in this situation? We work in a team where we have a metrics crazy manager, likes measuring. He doesn't think about people, he doesn't think about the end result or sense or context of the product. He likes numbers, he likes bugs on the code line, and he likes the number of reopens. What can we do in this case? To quit. Okay, that's an option. Any other options? Yes, two questions. First, why don't we like it? I'm not saying that we don't like it, but what can we do about that? We can, yes, we can prepare reports to do them. To do what? So that we can work, okay? So that it makes our work more comfortable. Maybe we're dependent on your context. Remember, I spoke about context. It would be also an opportunity to make some money and to make this world better, maybe. Leave it to somebody who might find it more interesting. Make the world better, and what this person can do. That's why I want to speak and discuss it with you, because I don't know how many people we have in this room, many people, and each one of you has a different outlook, different understanding. I would like to hear from you now. Maybe we can speak to that manager and say that it's not really a correct approach within the team framework, and team are not really satisfied with that, or it would be his task to adjust to the needs of the team, or other words, if it is in line with the goals and objectives, then we can try to adjust ourselves to the needs of the manager. Yes, we can do that. We can talk to the manager. We can say, okay, buddy, the team doesn't want to work with you. What this manager will do then? Yeah. Doesn't want to work with you, right? Maybe I didn't hear you. Not that they don't want to work. We can improve the situation. Okay, pal, we can improve the work with you. Let's introduce other practices. Let us suggest other metrics to you. That's an option. Yes, that's an option. I just want to warn you against other things. You know, when you suggest to a manager, your metrics are shit, let's use our metrics, but because then otherwise you will have to be responsible for that. It's more likely that other managers will start tuning those KPIs. That's right, that's a good story. It's called The Legend on the Reception Testing. The story goes as one team they introduced great KPI for reception testing. How many incidents the tester finds until a certain moment of time. For severity, on priority, they didn't look at it or ignored it. So we're talking about quantitative metrics here. At a certain point in time, everything was going well until the tester Masha falls in love with the developer Ivan, and all of a sudden everything became perfect with KPIs. They started to introduce KPIs for developers. The the tester Masha decided that if she's perfect, maybe Vlampy can be perfect. So KPI is such a thing, is quite a dangerous thing. Then now the risk that people will quit from any manager where they feel uncomfortable to work with under certain context that they create for themselves. We have an organization, we have tasks, we have projects, but we also have the most important person in our life, ourselves, us. If we feel uncomfortable because of different reasons, because of objective reasons under this context, that it's more likely that we'll quit. And then it's the task of the manager and the HR manager to do everything possible for you not to quit, but find an opportunity for yourself to develop your potential. And that's it about theory. Let's speak about such managers like buzzword-driven management. Have you heard about gull management? When a manager flies in, you, team working, you have a sprint plan or iteration, you're working on it, and the manager comes in, starts crying, changing all the priorities, shits on you, and then you're like, what? What was it? It's a good question. What was it? What can a tester do if it so happens that you end up in a team like that? What can you do? Let's do it one at a time. Reorganize priorities. What do you imply by that? On reorganization of priorities while we're sitting and working on our sprint, everything is great, we have a plan, then a manager comes in and says, no, it's all no good. And we're sitting and thinking, is it really what we need to do? Okay, let us reorganize. Okay, in 1 day's time, he flies in again, he gets the new information, so we tell him, Misha, you're quite annoying. Well, any coincidences are like this are no accident. I heard another option from that side. Ignore it. Okay, we can. Any coincidences are accidental. Okay, we either ignore it. Indeed, the manager flies in, changes priorities. Remember the old humorous shorts about priorities when a young person playing dominoes, young railroad worker plays dominoes with an old railroad worker. They get a phone call telling them to move a train car from one line to another. The young guy jumps up, says, I'm going to do that. The old guy tells him, no, sit and wait. And then a number of phone calls reach them, and then the dispatcher comes in and says, tells them, sorry, return the train back where we started. And the old one tells him, see, it has already been done. And the young one is surprised. He says, see, the new rules get changed very often. So the same time management rule works here as well, to ask the manager directly that's reaching, because a gull manager comes in like this, creates panic, and you fix this back, because now we're going to show the picture, forget the backhand, and runs away. No, we start running after him because he's running away, but he needs to be usefully explained that UI without backhand cannot really work well. And you ask him, can you reformulate the task once again? Okay. Chameleon manager. It's a manager who adjusts himself or tries to accept the most popular outlook or vision depending on the maturity of the manager. It can be the view of the team, it can be the view of the supreme management, it can be the view of the clients for whom the product is developed. He accepts this view because people want it. People want it to be convenient, to buy, say, air tickets. He accepts it. He says, we're moving towards optimization of air ticket purchase. Everything looks to be quite logical. It starts the way he originally planned. But then it turns out that if we go back to the scientific management, one of the models that I suggested at the beginning, there's one thing is science/analysis. What he heard that people are talking about, right? But didn't do the analysis or looked at how many people, for instance, are trying to buy tickets. Maybe they're lose it at the level of the search, not the flow of the ticket purchase. But the team starts working on what he told them to do. It looks everything good, but like the manager is broadcasting the interests of some stakeholders, and we're doing it the way they want it. But it does work this way. What can a tester do here when a manager is such an inventive guy? All these instructions should be done in written form. Yes, it can work. Then it's a somewhat different principle here. If we ask the manager to give us all the instructions in written form, like we call it cover your letter, cover your S letter. You can cover your S with that. But why? We have manager without the product manager, like there are no other stakeholders, because stakeholders also analyze the market this way. Because when a manager makes a decision to move along some way, then it must be based on something, right? Yes, right. It's supposed to be based on analytics, and more often, it should be based on some recommended things like the manager must understand how they will manage the success. But let's consider that there is no product world here. Who has product world here? Raise your hand. Wow. There are very few people who don't have it. Okay. If we're talking about product world, those of you who have product world, you work with Scrum, right? Product world cannot exist without a Scrum. Product manager responsible for the product development, right? Such people do exist. But this is not a product manager. This is not product world. Why a person makes such a decision, it's up to him. Could be product manager who makes these decisions. It says, I will agree with product manager. Could be a team lead who says that this is business and all of this is nonsense. I know how it works. I know. It also happens. Did I answer your question about the situation? It can happen, yes. Doesn't happen often, but even in the product world and product managers who know how to read numbers, who know what metrics are needed, who know how to analyze, better testing. Not there's no theory, but there's know how to do it. There are people like that, but there are very few of them. Also, they can practice business analysis. Why not?
So if you can divide it, it's best. So one of the things to cope with the Chameleon manager is when you confront him with a request to share responsibilities. It's just he has a mental block at a certain time when he acts like a chameleon. It's just he gets a jaundiced eye and he forgets about all the other things. So the Kuku manager. So this is the world animal, the world of animals we're having here. So Kuku managers say, I have been born to be a product manager. He always comes up with features and he dumps it on other units. Be it you're a functional integrity unit, and then a manager runs in and speaks about a cool feature that you need to come up with, and then how automated framework needs to be tuned up. If it works, he will take credit for it because he was the one who planted that idea. If it didn't work, then it's your problem. You were not up to it. You don't have sufficient skills and qualifications. What can a tester do to oppose that kind of management? Take tasks from approval of your manager. You might discuss this within a team. I mean, should you take this idea on board or not? I believe that whenever we run into such managers, we need to rely on answers to certain questions. I mean, this is a reliable, dependable person. Did you have to work with him before? I mean, this is something you need to reflect regardless of the situation. Vice is a good word. I mean, what can be hidden behind our wisdom? We need to rely on our context. But managers live in their own context. We live in our own context. We are closer to implementation. We are closer to doers, people on the ground who work on the products. Are there any product managers in the room? Great. It's. I don't mean to put you on the spot. Let's say there are two of us now. It's important to take into account the Squirrel manager. It could be a team lead who receives a stack of objects or tasks, and he knows what kind of tasks need to be resolved during this iteration, and he starts shoving tasks to the others. Some of those tasks could be doable, others um, hit a snag, and this happens when the company decides to switch to Scrum. But there is cross-functional tasking in Scrum, which means what? Everybody should be able to do everything, right? No, wrong. There should be roles distributed amongst the team. It doesn't mean that there should be generalists. And this is what people forget. This is how you end up with squirrel managers. We use Scrum for different functions, and then this guy sits in the back end writing tests for UI, which is a deplorable and sorry sight to see, but sometimes developers are asked to plunge into an abyss which is far away from their habitual domain. So what can a tester do in this situation? Stand his ground. What do you mean, stand his ground? I would advise that team itself decides which member of the team should take it up to be able to solve it. Okay, you're an engineer on a team where there is someone who shoves tasks onto you. How would you suggest going around it? Brooming? Yeah, that's certainly one way to go. The Varanian manager, do you know how Varan is in English? This monitor lizard. The monitor lizard bites a prey and then he walks around waiting. The manager who acts as a monitor lizard always enters a community or environment, and then he starts looking around. He wants to identify himself. I don't want to distract anybody. I just look at him, standing in the back, observing things, generating curiosity of other people, waiting for others to ask, "What are you doing here?" So every 5 minutes he would ping things, ask if there are any challenges, can I help you out? So how can a tester go about that? Perhaps you need to work it out with the manager and suggest that you generate reports once a day. If it's a small task but super urgent, then perhaps every 2 hours you could report to him. Tell him this is the status now. I need more time. And you will be in the comfort zone, and the manager will be in the comfort zone. Okay, very good, thank you. Or you could talk to that manager and tell him this is how much time we've just lost over your interventions, and you need to get a grip. You need to control yourself a little bit. It also works if I'm an engineer and you are an engineer. We work on a task, we're really in the zone, and we don't want to be distracted because it would cost us at least half an hour. Because for 15 minutes you're trying to figure out what this monitor lizard needs, and well, you will lose a considerable portion of the day. This is also about privacy, right? So we can just share numbers. What we could do is split a big task into smaller subtasks in Jira with the breakdown, and that manager will have a peace of mind. And if I need any assistance, I will let you know. Yeah, that's a good one. He will come anyway, but not as often. The possum manager. I have fallen on the ground production and play dead production. So what do we do with this kind of manager? Try to push him with a stick to see if he's alive. Poke with the stick or write an escalation letter. Indeed, if our manager falls into a perfectionist's paralysis over a problem, we might escalate. Perhaps someone will tell him how to do his job better. The woodpecker manager, it's someone who who goes around asking about deadlines, like a woodpecker would knock on the wood all the time, continually. So are we doing good? Will we be able to do it? He's like an active monitor lizard. He keeps biting you. He doesn't wait for you to die. He keeps biting you. We could plan meeting a deadline and vocalize them in the early days of the script. Another question, why don't we just get rid of these poor managers? Well, killing is bad. We can get rid of them, but there is the context with nuances. A manager can be effective in a particular company, but not effective when it comes to teamwork. Or it may seem that this manager is not good, but in fact this woodpecker manager would make sure that you would meet your deadline, unlike other units working in your company. Stakeholders in business see the result or performance in simple things, in profits that are transferred into your account or in the turnover. Therefore, we cannot fire them. And the fact that the manager works with us this way, it doesn't mean that he visits the offices of vice president. He might be playing dead like an opossum when he's in the office of the vice president. So it's difficult to fire such people if it's not a flat setup. We could suggest switching teams. We could, we could, well, if we go back to the context, we could propose that the manager improves the context or is handed a team which he will feel more comfortable working with. The skunk manager. Well, he is harmless, innocuous, until he freaks out. when something goes wrong, contrary to what His Excellency wanted, he will become hysterical or go ballistic. It might be constructive, but he'll start putting pressure on the team to the point of becoming too toxic to handle. So everybody tries to give him the cold shoulder, keeping shy of him, and get his signature if needed. I mean, just giving him the silent treatment. What can we do? Okay, let's take a team lead who looks sullenly into the code and see that the code was mal written. Who is writing this test? Who can commit such tests? All patterns are shut to hell. I mean, why do you copy it yelling in front of the monitor? You know, he's talking to the monitor, he feels easy, but the team, especially those who wrote the code, feel very uneasy. So when we talk about the lead on the team, what I would give the feedback one-to-one telling, don't try doing it. And the lead can take fire and um, pass it down to me. Another idea is that you could suggest writing your mark on a piece of paper or go get some water in the bathroom, you know, give him some space so he could yell, get it out of his system. Yeah, it's due to stress. It's due to fright.
Потому что монитор безобиден, поорать можно.
Well, you know, we work in a safe environment in work, and I can yell at people. That's what he thinks, but that doesn't work all the time. Oh, you could get it out of your system, yeah. In retrospect, you could really talk it out, but there are pros and cons here. It could balance things. Yes, it's great to have. Also, such person could be requested to, or could be asked could be given some techniques as to how to manage stress. You know, maybe crumple a piece of paper or do something else, but it's much better than hearing someone scream at the top of his lungs. So we're done with animals. Next we have the silver bullet manager.
Все круто, он прибегает и говорит, все, теперь мы становимся agile. И везде начинает пихать ногу.
So he visited a conference and he learned about Scrum. So he comes back and start using this word on every occasion. He doesn't think about the context. He he doesn't know that it's much more challenging and more difficult to use Scrum on certain platforms. But he learned about Scrums and he developed software for nuclear power plant. And he tells the customer, what you do is very outdated. We are going to take small steps and do it fast. And this is great plan with nuclear applications. So what do we do with him? Yeah, we could ask him questions. What for? So that he would test his idea against this idea to see where it leads to. Come up with some numbers just to come to grips with what he is planning. In other words, to trigger the processes of realization in his mind. If that person learned about Scrum from you, or from a superior officer, or from an experienced consultant, and you know that person is the silver bullet, when he learns something, he starts integrating it. Just stop him and ask him, uh, how do you understand it works? Give him a case to see if if this is the correct understanding of the idea. And the commandos manager, well, he sets tasks. We need to have it tested. Our release is 1 week away and we gotta test it. You have tested it and it turned out that you met the deadline even faster. And then he says, all is well, but why didn't you check it against Explorer 7.0? That's because it's not being used anymore. He says, you're bullshit testers. Then he found a gap. In other words, he goes around shooting at you with different projects where your testing might fail. I think that if we're faced with an unclear task, our objective is to clarify what kind of environment he wants it to apply to. If it's a web browser, so to tighten the focus. And if he wants to deliver it in compressed time frame, we could tell him this is what we will be able to check. If he needs more, we will have to throw away some of the things. So that he would start shooting at one target and one target only, without leaving other targets. Well, in our situation, we tried to do the following. We wrote a requirement or task brief to the development, and on the other hand, we approached the top management asking to put pressure down so that they would describe the task to become more realistic, right? And describe things in real terms and not putting up their wish list. And there was another comment here. I also, well, had the same comment basically, but there is one other thing. If there is a lead who tells you to do something abstract, he might think that you are simply dumb. You ask too many questions.
Basically, based on the fact that he said this phrase sounds crystal clear to him, and sometimes it goes off kilter. And their last top manager style is the agile, crazy manager. The manager who I've heard about the agile style, tries applying everywhere in corporation and family, always has family Kanban, other things. He's a huge fan of this. What else can we do that? If a person is agile, addicted manager, I used agile just as one of the buzzwords, this hype word now. What can we do here? To try to understand him and forgive him. Okay, we can do that. Actually, agile has many assets and pluses. We can try to discuss them and also discuss some of the losses that might come up with. Okay, you can describe the losses and show the delta. Okay, colleague moderators, I have a question. Have we run out of time completely, or we still have time for questions? No, no time left. Okay, the last question. As an option here, we can not go deeply into agile only, but rather take, okay, we decided to take assets from here. We know that Kanban is good, we'll take something good from other things. Let's take a little bit from everywhere and do our own system, like customized system. Yes, we can try to show it like this. It'll work or it won't work, depending on the manager or the context. Conclusions. We have discussed what different options are possible depending on the type of the manager. In fact, if we think about it, there are many of them, and within your context, there can be many fantastic beasts that exist everywhere. When you say that manager is doing a piss poor job, remember that the manager is working in context. He's also human, and try to think and understand in what context he works and how you can make your work more comfortable and more result oriented, and come up to the manager, approach the manager with that.